Hi, happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How was everyone's weekend? How are y'all doing? I'm so excited. We have our free masterclass today. And I was just about to forget the title of it. It is The Truth About a 40K Cash Month. 5 lessons from the biggest mistakes I made at the start of my business that you can borrow, that you can steal for your own 10K months. But I always like to chit chat and say hi a little bit before we dive in. Just want to know how everyone is doing, how in the world you're doing. I feel like we've got a lot going on with COVID again. And then if you're in the US, I think there's a lot going on politically right now. So just wanting to check in, see how everyone is feeling and doing, and just have, before we dive into the content today, just have a moment to be human and just to acknowledge that I think everyone here probably has a lot else on their mind. So want to acknowledge all that. Feel free always, if you want to leave any comments about that or to use the group to have discussions about what is going on in our world. And I really want today's masterclass to be really, really valuable for you. That is why I put it together. That's why I'm here. So I also want to invite you, as much as I want to acknowledge that, I also want to invite you to take this time, if you're joining me, whether it's now or on the replay, and hey, Creative, feel nice to have you here, to take a moment to pause, to collect your thoughts, to be really present, because I really want to offer you something today that you really and genuinely can steal for your own 10K months or more, wherever you are at in business. So I want to both acknowledge that there is a lot going on globally. There has been a lot going on globally. There probably always will be, and that is important. We want to acknowledge that and create space to have those conversations. They are so incredibly important. Our businesses are not our whole world, and if you're going to tune in right now and you're going to be here, let's also try to drop in and be present and use this time to help you get what you need to help further you along in business. So that's my little spiel there. So if you are new to my world, hi, welcome. I know with these, sometimes I have new people here. Creative feels this hard back. Welcome. I'm Kim Argetsinger. I'm a mindset coach and business mentor. I have been in business for over 6 years now, which is kind of wild to me. We celebrated that recently. I've been coaching for about 7 years. I started coaching and did a year-long training, actually probably about 8 years now. I did a year-long training for coaching, and I worked in advertising before starting my business, but I've been in the online space for about 6 years. I have a multi-6-figure business, and I now support clients one-on-one to build, grow, and scale profitable businesses on their terms using a combination of clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. So we really like to combine the clarity and the mindset side with the really practical, tangible strategy and action steps. And that's what we're going to dive into today, because I now have a multi-6-figure business. I make between 30 to 40K plus cash a month, all from one-on-one, without running ads, without having a group program, without having other offers, without complicated funnels. Not that any of those are wrong. I have plenty of clients who have all of those things, but just to give context. However, my first year in business, that was not at all the case. I joke, I lovingly say I rode the struggle bus. It was not the struggle bus. I think it's normal to have a growth period in business, but I definitely had some challenges along the way, and I really think some of those were so valuable to me. And I love to look back and see what were some of those things that made it harder for me my first year in business, because while I think, yes, success can take some time and we want to play the long game, not that it always has to take a long time, we want to create that story, I'm also very aware that I got in my own way and I absolutely made things harder than they needed to be. So today I want to unpack 5 of those so-called mistakes, which we're going to talk about in a moment. I really want to unpack what they were. And even if you're not doing the same thing in your business, I want to break down kind of what was going on under the surface, how I was getting in my own way, so that you can take from these lessons, hopefully give yourself a shortcut and help speed up your, not that it's a rush, there's no race in business, but just help give you that opportunity to get out of your own way and to get the results you want in business. Hey, Brooke, nice to have you here. Before we dive in, a quick reminder, I am giving away one-on-one coaching session, a strategy and mindset session. I don't offer one-on-one single sessions anymore, so this is a great opportunity to work with me and to get my eyes all over your business and to support you to income wins. I've had clients book single sessions and like go book 10K clients within a week of them. So they're really valuable. All you have to do is comment. Leave a comment now. Leave a comment on the replay. We will pick a winner. I have to check when team is checking, probably on Thursday. But leave a comment, emoji, any of that counts to enter you in to win. Okay, so, and last reminder, I always forget these things. If you did not sign up and you want to sign up, we do have a bonus playbook for the masterclass. It has some prompts that we'll be going through to give you a space to collect your takeaways and your reflections and your action steps from our masterclass. I will drop a link to this. We'll send it out in the replay again tomorrow if you didn't sign up and you want that. It also gets you on my email list, which, we got all sorts of fun content there to help you build your business. Okay, so before we dive into the 5 biggest mistakes I made, I want to first give a preface and a lens I really want us to look at all of these mistakes with. So I pulled a quote from Tony Robbins, and he said, "People are rewarded in public for what they've practiced for years in private." And I think it's such a great quote that we often forget. And it's the lens I want to apply to this training, because I talked about really the truth behind a 40K cash month. And the truth is there are a lot of mistakes under that. And a lot of times we just on social media are rewarded for see the final outcome, and we don't see the practice underneath. And I want to speak specifically to that practice and the way I want us to view the perspective I want us to take on these so-called mistakes. So I keep saying mistakes in air quotes. I don't really believe in mistakes in the way we're talking about them here, or failures, unless we make a mistake or a failure and we don't choose to look at them and mine them for the gold they give us. If we do that and we just stop and we quit, I think, yes, those are mistakes. Those are something we consider a failure. However, I think most people you look at who are super successful, who have a 40K cash month or a 100K cash month or a 500K cash month, whatever that success is, it doesn't have to be monetary, who have a beautiful family life, who have a beautiful marriage, who have a beautiful, peaceful life, who have lots of health and fitness, whatever that success that you're looking for or that you deem as successful, usually what we see is underneath that, there is a lot of so-called failures and mistakes that pave the way to success. But the difference between someone who has the success we're celebrating and someone who we just see like has made that mistake is really what they do with those failures, so-called failures and mistakes. There is, I'm obsessed with the term grit, which is the passion and perseverance towards a long-term goal. And it's a term in psychology. We throw it around a lot, but just so we have some context there. And I'm also really, and I think it's just an important concept here as we're talking through mistakes and through the idea of failures and through what really creates a 40K cash month or any kind of, for some of you, you might be reaching further than that. For some of you might be like, Kim, I would just be happy for a 1K cash month, whatever, like the number is irrelevant here. I think the grit piece is really important and kind of what we're talking about here as we're looking at those mistakes, so to say, and we're taking a look at how we can steal these lessons today. With grit and with when I was kind of looking at like, what did help me to get here? How have I been in business for 6 years? Stats say women business owners, what is it? They like fail within the first couple of years. They're definitely not profitable. I mean, these are not the stats we normally see. What are one of the differences? And when I was looking at kind of my mindset in that first year, when I was on that so-called struggle bus phase, when I am really honest with myself, I see, okay, I might have had challenges, I might have made mistakes, but I've always had grit and I've always had a mastery mindset. And we've done another live stream on this, so I won't go too far into this, but I'm obsessed with the concept of a mastery mindset and with grit. I think they're part of the same. But a mastery mindset, I think so often we get stuck in perfectionism or in ambition or in there's competition, or there's so many different mindsets we can get wrapped around when we're wanting to create success of any kind on your terms in business. A mastery mindset, a mastery perspective, I really love, because mastery is something we never achieve. We are always in pursuit of mastery. It is an ongoing process. And it also has a component of it called deliberate practice, which is also a part of grit. And what they've done a lot of studies on what has created success for people. Grit is a component of that. Mastery is a component of that, this mastery mindset. And deliberate practice is a component of that. And deliberate practice is a very specific type of practicing. And this is really important because this is going to set our frame for the mistakes we're looking at today. Deliberate practice includes having a stretch goal, which I think all of us are pretty familiar with. I think we're pretty good at creating the stretch goals, right? Whether that's a 10K cash month or having 35 people in your next group program or a 50K cash month or whatever that might be for you, right? We have that stretch goal. And then the way in which you create that, a deliberate practice through a mastery mindset, is showing up for and taking action towards that, collecting immediate feedback. And that feedback is really what I see mistakes and failures as. I see and I reframe mistakes. I reframe struggle, I reframe challenge, I reframe failure as immediate feedback. And that's what I want us to see today. And then refining the actions you're taking. And I don't think I knew this process when, just checking my notes here. I don't think I knew that process maybe when I started my first year in business. I started researching grit and got obsessed with it after. But I realized looking back now, that's been a mindset that has always served me. I have had plenty of mindsets that did not serve me that we will talk about today, but this has been the one that has really carried me through. So I want to invite you to see how can you start to play with having a mastery mindset in your business and leaning into some of that grittiness. And I really want to be mindful here. A mastery mindset and grittiness does not mean that things have to take a long time or that they have to be hard or challenging. I think gritty has a very hard sounding tone to it, but it really is that passion and perseverance for a long-term goal. It's playing the long game, being in the long game. It does not mean things have to take a long time. It is a mindset, not a time frame. That's a really important distinction. Creative Fuel says, I would love to enter. You are entered. You are so entered. And anyone else hopping on now, we are drop an emoji, comment, anything throughout the training, you'll be entered to win a free one-on-one coaching session with me. And I will put my eyes all over your biz. But kind of going back to the mastery mindset there and the deliberate practice and grit, this is, again, it's a mindset and a way we look at business. It is not a time frame. And deliberate practice is really what I want to invite you to start to look at all of business. I always say all of business is a test, right? We don't know the answers in advance. We are always testing in business, and all of business, especially for all of us who are also passion driven and who are service-based and have work that we think of as our craft, we are really always in mastery and the development of our mastery of our craft and of our work, and as CEOs, and it is always a practice of deliberate practice, which again feels so important before we dive into this, because I think we hear so much about the 10,000 hours concept, and 10,000 hours is actually kind of a false idea. We can do lots of things for 10,000 hours and be kind of crap at them. And we're going to talk about that as one of the mistakes. But if you do 10,000 hours with a mastery mindset, deliberately practicing, that's when you become an expert. That's when you create success. That's when you get the results you want. Again, now that has to take 10,000 hours, but just to help paint that picture here. So I'm going to break down these 5 mistakes, but I really, again, want to invite you to see these mistakes as really feedback and start to look at your own business when something happens that doesn't happen the way you want it to. How can you look for that immediate feedback? And if it's hard for you to do with for yourself, that's where, getting support, getting coach, having a peer work that through with you can be really, really beneficial, because the more you look for that feedback, the faster you are going to grow and up level in business. Okay. I'm off my soapbox, but that feels really important because that is the truth. If the truth behind a 40K month for me is we are celebrated in public or whatever for what has been 6 years, in the making, which has been a lot of deliberate practice, a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning and growth. It has been so joyful, but it's so easy to see one number and not see kind of what goes underneath that. And that's what I want all of us to start to cultivate. So we make ourselves right and we make it easier, and we can make the ball roll forward smoothly instead of feeling like we're pushing a ball uphill. Okay, it also takes the pressure off, I think. So let us go through these mistakes. I just want to pull up my notes because I had a lot of these, and we're gonna go through 5 today, but don't kid yourself. I had more than 5. Okay, so the first so-called mistake where I had to get some immediate feedback here, right? We were going through the deliberate practice loop, was I was making it really hard for people to hire me. And I talked at the beginning about how my coaching framework is clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. This is what I'm always looking at things through and working on with my clients so we can really get clear on what's actually going on and solve the right problem. And when I look at I was making it hard for people to hire me, I really see how this was both a strategy and a mindset mistake and challenge. So I'm gonna break this apart here a little bit, but I was actually chatting about this with a client yesterday. We were taking a look at her business and why it was feeling a little hard and why she was feeling like she wasn't booking as many clients as she could. And I was teasing her very lovingly, but I was teasing her and saying she was making it really hard for people to hire her. And I was giving her the example, I live in Brooklyn and there is a really cool vintage shop that is kind of down the street from me. But we have lived here in this apartment for about 1.5 years. I did not know this vintage shop existed until very recently because someone told us about it. because it is in kind of an old warehouse building. It's on the second floor, but you have to know it exists, and you have to go in the building, past a restaurant, up a flight of stairs, down the hall, past an out of business kind of like co-working space, around the corner, past the like dry cleaners, past something else, around another corner. It's down this hallway, and then there's a door, no windows or anything, with a little tiny sign for the name of the store. Meanwhile, there are thousands, I live in a touristy area, there are thousands of people walking by this warehouse, like this, building all day long, who are like me, who have no idea that vintage shop exists. I only knew because someone told me it existed, and my husband and I went to check it out, and lo and behold, it's like this glorious room with all of these cool vintage things, but there's only like 3 people in the store, because they're making it really hard for people to find them, really hard for people to hire them. And this was something, I talk about hiding in plain sight a lot. This is something that was a challenge for me at the start of business. And the reason I was teasing my client about this, and I think we talk about this in this group quite a bit, is it's very easy to think you are making it easy for people to hire you, and you're putting yourself out there, and you're creating content, or you're engaging with people, only to realize, oh, you're kind of like that store that's like all the way around the corner, hidden up the stairs, kind of like behind all these like dark alleyways, but you're kind of like that store in that you're never really letting people know what it is you actually do, how you can support them, how someone can pay you, how they can take the next step with you. And we can see, if it took me a year and a half to find that store, and I only found out because of a referral, that's kind of what was happening in my business. I was showing up every day. I was posting content every day. I did book some clients. I'm always kind of look at my first year in business, like, how did I actually make money? Because I was not making it easy for people to understand what I did, and I was not selling enough. And so I want to invite you to take a pause and to look at, are you kind of like that shop? Are you making it hard for people to know you exist? Are you making it hard for people to pay you? Are you making it hard for people to hire you? Are you making it hard for people to understand what the heck it is you do and where you're located? And I think this can show up in a couple different ways. Again, for me, I was visibly showing up and sharing content, but I was not connecting the dots for people, as opposed in terms of like, here's my great content, and here's the way I could support you. Here's the way I can help you with this. Here's the way you can hire me. And here's the next step you can take. I wasn't not connecting the dots to any of that. So I want to invite you to think like, wait, am I doing that? I had an email list. I was emailing them regularly, but I never sent sales emails. So again, I'm like actually shocked that people hired me, because they had to go through a really, really long walk to figure out what it is I did. Very similar to what I described with the vintage store. They had to consume my content. Then they had to go find my website. They had to go find my sales page. They had to scroll all the way to the bottom. And then all the way at the bottom, there was a link to book a consultation, as opposed to me talking about it regularly. So I really this is, I think, something that is very, very, very common. And I think this one is sneaky because, like I said, this is both a strategy and a mindset mistake, because strategically speaking, we can see here where there was just a part of my strategy that was missing. I wasn't connecting the dots for people. I wasn't making a call to action. I was essentially hiding in plain sight, right? I wasn't making that very clear. I wasn't closing that loop and making it easy for people to find me and pay me. However, and this is where getting support is so valuable and why I am so grateful for the support I have. Even when I got clear on that, right, through the deliberate practice, and I saw, oh, this is what I'm doing, I had to also look at why was I doing that? Because the truth is, I'm a pretty smart cookie. I'm a business coach. I can help other clients do this. My first year in business, I did have some clients. I helped someone reach, I think, $1 million in the first year I was in business, but they were getting great results. I could see this in other clients. And so like probably on some level, I actually knew that I was hiding in plain sight and that I was making it hard for people to pay me. But when I look at this and I look at the kind of feedback loop here, and I look at not only the piece here that I was missing, which is super valuable to understand from a strategic perspective, I had to also look at why was I not following through? Why was I making it challenging for people to see me? Why was I making it challenging for people to understand what I was doing? And the truth was, I had some mindset stuff going on in terms of really trusting myself and feeling good enough. And that's why I want to highlight as we go through these, sometimes it's not just as cut and dry as kind of like the surface level presenting thing. This was really both a strategic and a mindset thing, in terms of that mistake. And that's why I think it's so important we don't make ourselves wrong or call these mistakes and really see this as feedback. Because when I identified that this was a gap missing, it was really fascinating. I didn't immediately jump into action. I'm a very action-oriented person because I had a lot of internal resistance mindset-wise. And so I want to invite you, if this is maybe something that you're like, oh, this is something that I might, let me look at feedback in my business. This might be something I'm doing. I might be, doing all the things, but not actually connecting the dots and inviting people in to hire me. Or I might not be selling enough. Or I might be, burying the lead kind of like way at the bottom of a long ass email and then kind of like having one line about the work I do. I would invite you to check in. Great. If you're clear on that, does that feel easy to make a shift and kind of shift the strategy there? Or does it feel like there's some internal resistance? Is there something coming up for you? And if so, I would really invite you to check in with and to look at what's the story coming up, what's the fear coming up, what's the resistance coming up? Because then this so-called mistake, and again, we're looking at this as feedback, might be saying that the opportunity here for you is as much mindset as it is strategy. So if you have the playbook, and I'll just reflect some of the questions here. For this training in particular, I really want to invite you to look at, if this is our first mistake, what is that takeaway for you in your business? Maybe you've got this down, in which case your takeaway might be to celebrate the heck out of this and to give yourself some credit and to see you're doing things right. Because I think, again, it's so easy, even when you're doing things right, to make yourself wrong. I so often am supporting my clients who are doing amazing to remind themselves that they're doing amazing so they don't get in their own way and sabotage what is doing well. So maybe that's your takeaway here. Or maybe you're having another takeaway, whether it's strategic or mindset. Note that for yourself. And I also really want to invite you to commit to an action step you can take based on this mistake for your own business. What is an action step you can put into place based on that insight you had? So if you notice something strategic, I would invite you to have a strategic action step. If you notice this was more mindset getting kicked up for you, I would invite you to have a mindset action step, which might either be something to do some mindset work around what came up for you, or what we call a contrary action, an action that is sort of the opposite of what you've been doing right now, kind of when you've been sitting in resistance. Okay, let me know if you have questions about that. I think that is pretty clear, but y'all let me know. If you have questions, if that makes sense, if you resonate, anything like that, always love to know. And if I'm gonna hop right over to the next one here. Okay, so the next so-called mistake, and again, we're not saying these are mistakes, but we're using that for language here. The next feedback, what I noticed in my first year in business, and this is something I continue at every level in business. It's an edge I work. We did a series on the podcast that we're actually going to relaunch later, I think in a month or two, but we did a series last year on the podcast around this. And this is something I'm constantly noticing in clients and supporting them around. And I preface that because I think this is so normal, because if you're in this space, you are likely very heart-centered, you are likely sensitive, you are likely a caring person. But the second mistake I had was, quite honestly, caring too much about what other people thought and being way too nice. And I'm a nice person, but in terms of kind of like people pleasing niceties, and really feeling like I needed to like bend over backwards to make sure people were okay at the expense of my business. And this is interesting because I think this is one of those ones that's very mindset based. However, it showed up in my strategy or hindered my strategy. So we're talking a lot here about things. I want to highlight how it can be both with each of these mistakes, because it's so easy for us just to jump to surface level challenges in business when often there are other components at play. And I have a friend who calls this basically giving too many fucks, or she says she doesn't have enough fucks to give, but I gave too many fucks. And what I noticed when I look back that first year in business and what I see through my clients now is being so concerned, caring so much about not just what other people think, but other people like you, and being nice and making sure other people are always okay. I get, like, if you're here listening to this, I know this can almost sound like, but isn't that great? Like, as a business owner and as someone who's service-based, isn't that like kind of our goal? And being a kind, service of integrity person is absolutely our goal. I am heart-centered. I sell with heart. I serve with heart. Abso-fucking-lutely. And there is a way in which this can become really detrimental to you and your business, because what I find for so many of us who are, especially in the caring professions and who are heart-centered, caring can turn into caretaking. And this can turn into really sabotaging your own success, or not holding boundaries, or saying yes to things you don't want to, or not posting in a Facebook group, or not selling, or not owning your success, or not bragging on your wins, or not owning what you bring to the table. I mean, the list goes on, because you're worrying so much about upsetting someone else, because you're worrying so much, you're trying to caretake the world. And again, caring is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. I believe I'm probably like a bleeding heart type of a person. I like literally cry on client calls very often because I'm so happy for them and care so much. And I think as business owners, we have to be really clear on the difference between caring about our work, caring about our clients, and caretaking, and caring so much about what other people think at the expense of what we think, about allowing the fear of someone else's opinions to sabotage your own success, or to keep you immobile, or from taking action, or from taking up space. And that's really what we're talking about here. Being too nice because society has taught you that is the way you're supposed to be as a business owner, instead of seeing you can be honest, you can be firm, you can be direct, and that is some of the nicest stuff you can do. And it is okay to make some fucking noise and to have a successful business, and there's enough room for everyone. Hey Kate, it just showed me that you were here. Kate says, I still find myself saying if that's okay, and I have to really be aware of when and where it comes up, as it's always a sign I'm stepping into that caretaker role. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kate. I really appreciate it, because I think it's really helpful for everyone to see an example. It's exactly that. It's that, like, is that okay? And checking in. And again, hey Lenita, nice to have you here. And again, I want to be really mindful as we're talking about this. There are times when what Kate is saying is actually really valuable. When I have a sales conversation with someone, I'm always wanting to make sure they feel really safe in that conversation. I'm checking in every step of the way to see, does that feel good with you? Is it okay if we move forward? If I'm having a coaching call and I'm going to ask someone something maybe that's really challenging for them, I might check in and get their permission first to make sure they really feel like they're in a safe container. And so I want to be mindful we're not making any of that wrong. And what Kate's talking about, what I'm talking about here, it's really that caretaking. It's that I don't want to put labels like codependency on this, but it can mimic a little bit of what that dynamic can be in kind of a client or a team dynamic. And I think this can also be kind of like that people pleasing, that outside in need for validation or for permission or for really okay and safeness to take up space, as opposed to that inside out, that internal, like, I got me, I love me, I am safe with me. We're not like having the pendulum swing where it's like, I don't care at all what people think, because that usually means you care even more. But it's that really neutral place of, I would love for people to approve of me, but it doesn't matter because I approve of me. I give me permission. I know I can embody and take up my space. I can own my work. I don't need to ask for permission all over the place to do that. And so I think that's what Kate and I are talking about. And I think for so many of us, again, who are heart-centered, who are caretaking, there's no shame in this. This is not wrong. There are often so many layers to where a pattern like this can come from, but it gets highlighted in our businesses. I have a friend who says that business is like a crash course and a lifelong course in personal development, and I could not agree more. I'm grateful. I tell my coach all the time, I'm like, how lucky am I that I get paid to be in a business that like really encourages me to continually like lean into personal development and to grow myself and to work my edges. And this happened to be one of mine that I see a lot in my clients. So I really want to invite you to notice if this is something that might be true for you too, because that need for permission, that need to like, is it okay if I take up space? Am I being too much? Like, what are they gonna think? Am I gonna ruffle some feathers? Am I gonna make them mad? All of that noise, it does quite a lot to really sabotage and limit your ability for success. I mean, first and foremost, all of those question marks, I mean, let's be honest, they're fucking exhausting. I know if I think back to that first year in business, or if I think back to, I say like when I up level, I find a lot of our stuff comes up. if I think to a time where like I'm worrying about that, or where that like that edge gets triggered in me, it's so consuming. It's such a like a dialogue, and it's such a like whenever you're people pleasing or worrying about other people, because you can't actually read their mind, and like newsflash for all of us, we can't actually control other people's opinions of us. So it becomes very mentally exhausting, which means we have to think, if in business, one of your most valuable, I would say your most valuable asset is your brain. And one of the most valuable assets you have that you can't get back is your time. And so think of how much brain space and time something like people pleasing or waiting for permission or worrying about what people think or giving basically too many fucks. Think of how much that consumes in your business. It literally costs you brain space and time, which costs you money. And then on top of that, what I find is it has us really pull back. It has us really shrink. It has us either wait for someone to say, yes, it's okay. You can go ahead and take up space. It's okay to charge those rates. It's okay to say you're great at what you do, right? We're either waiting and waiting and waiting for permission from an outside source, or we're showing up and we're kind of just like, we're doing that first mistake I talked about, which is we're making it really hard for people to understand how we can serve or help them, because we're really shrinking back because we're so concerned what someone might think. This is such a, you guys will actually laugh at this, I think. I should say women and men, but you'll probably laugh at this. So my first year in business, so two things that ways this showed up to just to normalize, and we can just like have a good chuckle at me. First, I was terrified. Like actually terrified. I think this might have actually been linked to a trauma response. So I don't even want to I want to actually have some compassion for myself. I was really, really scared to post content online on social media. I had so much concern about what people would think and what would happen to me if I did, the only reason I laugh at it now is we post so much content. I literally have a team of, I think, 5 consistent people, because there's so much content we're constantly putting out and posting on social media. So I share that because I also want you to see, like, even if this is something that comes up for you, like, this does not have to be a story or a truth, even if there's, some harder things like trauma attached to it. This does not have to be your truth. And then the second way this showed up for me, because I was so concerned about what people would think, we've talked about this on other live streams, one of our strategies is we share content in other Facebook groups as a way to get visible. I was petrified to post in other Facebook groups because I was convinced the owner of the group would hate me. And then I was especially convinced it was really, really mean if I posted in someone's group saying I was good at what I did. And even if I wasn't selling, if I was just like, I'm a great coach, like I can help you. I thought it was just like beyond like the worst possible thing I could do as a human. And like, I've been working with my coach for a very long time, so bless her heart. I don't even know if she would remember this because it's 4.5-5 years ago. But we had multiple calls where I legitimately had to work through this fear, because I laugh now, but it was very, very real because of exactly what we're talking about. There was just such a concern about, what other people might think. So I want to present that to you because I know I'm not the only one. Kate lovingly shared this. Hey, Manisha, nice to have you. It's showing me who's here today. I want to bring this up here because I know I'm not the only one. I see this through clients all the time. This isn't something to feel bad about or shameful about or to make yourself wrong about. Again, we're seeing a lot of these so-called mistakes, the feedback we're talking about. There's often layers, and usually it will present itself in your strategy, but we can see it's not just as simple as the strategy of go post in a Facebook group or go post content on social media. Often there's another component, and when we can start to see those other components, we can also really start to get that feedback of where's the opportunity to shift. Because the truth is whether it's a 40K month or a 10K month or whatever income month we're looking at, this is all the work that's underneath it to make that easy and replicable. That is a word I cannot say. It does not want to come out of my mouth. But whether that's for my business or someone else's business, I see this through clients because I have the gift of seeing so many businesses behind the scenes. Whenever we're sharing that outward income win, it's such a success, and it's something such a celebration, and something I think is for all of us to celebrate one another, because I think is so beautiful. But I think what's helpful to see is it's always these layers underneath for any of those wins we're seeing. Kate says, I'm chuckling over here as I can completely relate. See, it's so nice to know, this is super normal, y'all. I think it's also just so helpful to neutralize. This is something I talk with clients about quite a bit. I don't know if y'all know There's a book, Getting to Neutral, and It Takes What It Takes by, what's the author's name? Trevor. I will put it in the notes. I'm like blanking on his name. He's a sports like psychologist coach, a sports like high performance coach, but he talks all about the power of neutrality, which I'm obsessed with. But I think what I love about what you're saying, Kate, and why this is related, I think the more we can see all of these things are so normal, right? That is the truth behind a 40K cash month. All of this shit is normal. It is human. And the more we can see that, the more we can neutralize it. And the more we can neutralize these things, the more we can see that immediate feedback we were talking about as a part of the deliberate practice, the more we can neutrally take that feedback in and make those shifts we need to. And that's what allows us all to grow exponentially. So Kate, I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who's open to normalizing these things, because normalization helps us neutralize, and neutralization is magic. I like highly recommend those books. Okay, I'm Chatty Cathy over here. We still have 3 more, so I'm gonna move on to the next one, but y'all let me know if you have questions about that. And again, I wanna invite you with these as we're going through these. See, does this not come up for you? Great, give yourself a gold star and celebrate that. And I think that's just a great thing to acknowledge. If there's something that is coming up for you, just give yourself a moment to notice that and to see what is that feedback for you in your business, and what's one action step you can commit to taking. And I really want to invite you to take the action step that matches really where the opportunity is. Is it something strategic? Is it something mindset? Really want to invite you to play with getting clear on where the action step can help move you forward, to help shift whatever's coming up for you. Okay, this one I've talked about a lot, but I'm going to talk about it again. I've talked about it a lot because I've been here for 6 years, y'all, like an old lady in the online space. So I've brought this one up before, but I'm bringing it up again because I do not think there is a single client I have not had this conversation with. I think it is worth repeating over and over again, because I think this is one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs. And I think this is one of the biggest things that trips entrepreneurs up and keeps them stuck. And this is absolutely what tripped me up my first year in business. And this is also what made one of the biggest shifts for me and helped me, like we talk about the truth behind a 40K cash month. This is one of those shift makers. So it's overly simple, but I want to break it down because simple is a great thing. So it's essentially the mistake, so to say, the feedback is I jumped around a ton and I wasn't picking and sticking. And I mean this in every possible way, with my pricing, with my offers, with my strategy, with, my niche, with my messaging, kind of with all of the things. And I think what's really interesting here is this is both a strategy and mindset piece. So, and I want to tie this back into the deliberate practice piece, because I think this can be a confusing thing. The big mistake was essentially I jumped around all over the place, and what I have found to be true, and I know we have multi-passionates here, and I know if you're a multi-passionate, and I know if you're a creative, this is where you put your thumbs in your ears and you tune me out, because I have clients like you and I get it, because I am a creative and I feel you and I hear you. But hear me out for a second. Picking one thing and focusing on it and sticking with it and working it until it works, until you have results on repeat, is the quickest, easiest, most simplest way to create the results you want in business. Again, that doesn't mean if you're a multi-passionate, you cannot do anything creative ever again and you can only do one thing, but doing one thing at a time and doing it really well, and really allowing for what we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream, really allowing yourself to take on that mastery mindset and to deliberately practice where you have that stretch goal and you show up and take action and you get that immediate feedback and then you refine and you keep doing that again with one focus until it works for you, is what has brought me to 40K cash months. What made me have the struggle bus phase in my first year of business is I had a mastery mindset, but I wasn't deliberately practicing, I was deliberately practicing, but I wasn't picking one focus or one goal. And what's interesting is I probably would have told you I was. I don't think I was aware of this. This is why great coaching is so beneficial. I think I would have told you I had one goal. But if I zoom out now, I can see I was all over the place. I changed my offer up all the time. I had, I mean, even within one-on-one, I had all these different one-on-one offers. I was constantly changing them. I was sort of like, what's someone gonna pay me for? Let me try to make that offer. And then I was offering all sorts of different things. Part of that was I was testing offers, which I'm not mad at me for that, but strategy-wise, would have a great, it's so funny to me because I can look back and see I'd have a great strategy would work. I'd book a client from it, which is why I thought I was working something till it worked. And then I would immediately go do something else. I would like literally start a whole new strategy. And it's mind-boggling to me now because I now coach people on this all day long and I can see this from a mile away. But it's just like, so I like go back, I like look at past him like, well, oh, bless your heart. Like, what were you doing? Like, that was working. And it was literally working. Someone hired you and then you just decided to stop and go do something else. But that was my pattern. And so I want to reflect this to you because I think it's, again, I probably thought that I was doing things right and that things were working and that I should go do something else then. I don't think I like was trying to be all over the place. I probably wouldn't have told you I was doing all over the things. But I think this is one of the most common ways that entrepreneurs stay stuck or really limit their ability to grow. And I think it's a tough one to identify because I think a couple things can come up. And I think you can probably hear as I'm talking through this, this wasn't so much a taking action thing. It wasn't like I wasn't showing up. I've shown up consistently every single day in my business. It wasn't a strategy thing. I was actually pretty clear on strategy. It was a sticking with strategy thing, which was more a mindset thing. And you can hear as I'm talking about this, a lot of that was some of the other pieces we've talked about earlier. Like I had some mindset, self-trust, and I think there was probably some like fear of success going on there. I mean, there's other stuff as well, but there were more mindset issues going on that I was trying to address with strategy and action. And so I highlight this here because we almost have like two different pieces I want you to notice. One is the so-called mistake of really not picking and sticking with your offer, with your pricing, with your niche, with your messaging, with your strategy, right? And or like starting with something and as soon as it starts to work, jumping to something else, or starting with something and if it's not working fast enough, I think this is very common, thinking you're doing something wrong. And instead of applying deliberate practice and looking for feedback to where you can refine, jumping to a whole new strategy or a whole new offer, right? I think that's super common. And so that's kind of like the meta mistake here I want us to notice. But I talk a lot about like the win under the win, the mistake under the mistake, the thing under the thing here is also noticing how often we want to try to address a mindset issue with strategy or strategy issue with mindset, right? Clearly, as I'm talking through this, you can hear a lot of what I was doing was based on, it was a reaction to things that were going on with my mindset, with not trusting myself, with being a little scared of success, with maybe worrying I wasn't good enough, with whatever pieces were going on there, that I was, or with worrying maybe my strategy wasn't working. I think that was probably part of it. I probably thought I was being like a really great business owner looking at the data and like, let me go try something completely different. All of these pieces here, instead of addressing the mindset and working on the mindset, which was really what needed to be addressed, I was addressing it by changing up my strategy, by choosing a new offer, by picking a new price point, by learning Facebook ads, even though I've never run one, by starting on Pinterest, whatever that thing might be. So I want you to see how, yes, this is one mistake, but really what we're looking at is kind of the surface level thing here. And I want to invite you to look at, is there an opportunity to pick one thing and stick with it and work it till it works? And if there is that opportunity, do you have any resistance that comes up for you? Like, I think that's a really interesting thing to notice. You know, what's that story that comes up for you there? And then aside from that, also just starting to notice, do you find yourself in that pattern where maybe you're trying to solve mindset with strategy, solve strategy with mindset? I think sometimes we also try to solve mindset with action. That's a little bit of what I've been, for sure, a pattern of mine, something I see with clients, right? If we're feeling insecure, not good enough, or we feel like, you know, something's not working, or we're like imposter syndrome, sometimes some of us will have a response of let me go do, let me go action, let me go hustle more as a way to try to self-soothe. So I don't want to go too far off of it on a tangent here, but I think this is just a kind of like the thing under the thing, the mistake under the mistake, just something to notice here as we're unpacking this, because I really want everyone here as we're listening to these to see how can you apply this to your business, because it's not so much about just like, I don't know, pick Instagram and stick with it. Well, yes, if you're going to use Instagram, pick it and stick with it. But I want you to also see some of the thought process behind that so that you can apply this to all of your business. Okay, if you have questions, throw them at me. I think that is pretty clear. Let me see if I had any other. Oh, yes, there's, how are we doing on time? We're good on time. Okay, there's two more pieces I wanted to share here. These are actually important. So with the pick and stick, this is actually quite important that I wanted to highlight here. So I think one of the reasons that I would jump around a lot, particularly with my strategy, is I've always been great at taking action. I can I can just action. I will action myself all the time. Like that if anything is my Achilles heel. So that wasn't my challenge. So I would really think, well, I've tried this strategy enough. I've actioned this enough. I've been super consistent. I booked a client from it, but I only booked one client, so it must not really be working. That means there should be a better strategy for me, or there must be a better strategy. I should go and do something else. That was sort of my thought process and rationale at that time. What I wanted, or the same thing if it was with an offer, like it sold once, but if it wasn't selling enough, like I would think, well, there must be something better. There must be something different. Same thing with the price point, whatever, same thing with messaging. And so the reason I want to unpack that piece there is a couple things that come up for me that I think are helpful to understand, that I have really learned because of the gift of mistakes and that immediate feedback. Some things I have really learned is, first and foremost, we talk about this a lot here, but I really want you to play with the idea that pretty much every strategy works if you work it. Like even the crappiest strategies, if you're consistent, work them. Yes, we want to have that deliberate practice and mastery mindset where we're getting the feedback and we're refining them. But I mean, especially most of the strategies everyone here is implementing, they're not that complicated, and most of them really do work. I love Emily Hirsch, what is her podcast? Not for Lazy Marketers. She always talks about how marketing just works. And again, yes, there are opportunities to get feedback and refine, but I think that is helpful to remember, because I think when we're not getting the immediate results we want, we might get the immediate feedback, but not the immediate results we want. We're sitting in that discomfort, waiting for results to show up. Our brain just loves to think that must be because we're doing something wrong and there is something better. And especially in our online space that wants to constantly sell you, here is a better strategy, here is a better offer, here is a better thing to do. It's very easy to think, oh, that's right, let me go jump over here. There must be something I'm missing. And so again, not that we're saying if things aren't working, don't look at them, don't refine them, absolutely do that. But I really want to help us understand that most strategies work pretty well, and this is really common, and most strategies take on base minimum. I mean, like we're talking 30 to 90 days for results to start showing up. I think most results take 90 days to 6 months, 3 to 6 months, if not longer. I know that was definitely my trajectory. I know for many of my clients, that's the trajectory. Yes, I've had clients who in 3 months have gotten fully booked, but 3 months, y'all, getting fully booked in 3 months, that's still 90 days, right? I very rarely, I don't know, I've probably had a few people who have come out the gates and in a few weeks gotten really epic results, but that also usually means they're coming in with, they're at a different place with their strategy, or they're at a different place with their mindset, or they're in a different place with their messaging and marketing or their audience. They've already got warmed up. And so I think it's just really helpful to understand with what we're talking about with this mistake, because again, it's just so easy to jump around, and I have just seen so many people literally spin themselves out for years in business and think that they're either there's something wrong with them, or it's kind of that 10,000 hours rule, and really spin themselves out and burn themselves out because they're constantly jumping around instead of really allowing themselves to work something and to have that deliberate practice, that mastery mindset. Again, we're not just doing 10,000 hours or showing up and picking something, sticking with it blindly. That is not at all business or what we're talking about, but having that deliberate practice, mastery mindset really is what we want, but also having, just neutralizing and normalizing the time frame it starts minimum, like it takes minimum for results to show up. So that I wanted to highlight. And the other piece with this, it's almost like this is mistake number 3. This is almost like mistake 3.5 that I'm going to touch on real briefly, because I do think this was a big part of what had me jump around. I didn't have a clear sales process. So we talked about with the first mistake how I really wasn't selling enough and I was making it hard for people to hire me, and I wasn't making it very obvious what I did. But part of that, and this is something I support all of my clients with, I wasn't only not selling enough, I didn't have a very clear sales process that I could rinse and repeat. So part of what was making it challenging for me to pick and stick with something is I wasn't exactly sure what was creating the clients in my business. Every client I booked almost felt lucky, right? It was just sort of like, oh, well, I just keep showing up enough. And then like I book a discovery call and I book a client and I'm good at what I do. So like, it was sort of like if someone booked a discovery call, they were going to hire me, which is a great thing. And that made me feel like I was doing sales right, but I didn't actually understand at that point what was bringing people in through the door, which made it really hard to kind of pick and stick. I talk about clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. I would say this is actually a clarity piece. And so when I got clear on that full sales process, then it made it a lot easier for me to pick and stick, and to work that mastery mindset and to work the deliberate practice through that process, because I started to see it wasn't an accident. It wasn't just sort of like do enough things for enough time, people land, like somehow book a discovery call. I could start to see, press these levers and press them enough over enough time, and calls get booked in and you book clients. So I want to highlight that, because if that's something you feel like you're missing in your business, then again, no shame. I think everyone, like, let's normalize and neutralize that. I think a lot of businesses do, but then that's a really great opportunity for you to get clear on, how do I get really clear on this so that I can have a strategy that I can rinse and repeat. So I'm not jumping all over the place, because it might be more, not even a strategy, or I mean, that is strategy, but it might not even be so much strategy mindset. It is first that clarity piece for you. And that way you're able to identify really what is that feedback for you that you want to take action on, that you want to refine, so that you can have your own 10K or 20K or 30K, whatever kind of month you want. Okay, so that was 3.5. Let's go to number 4 here. And again, if you have questions, reflections, anything, throw them at me. I hope this is helpful for y'all, because you're pretty quiet. So hopefully you're all just taking a lot of notes, but if you do have thoughts or anything, I'm so happy to answer any of the questions. So the 4th mistake is, I think this is the best business advice. This also, I've been like on a getting to neutral kick, but in getting to neutral, he speaks to do simple better. And so the mistake I had was kind of the opposite of this. It was really overcomplicating things and really believing that complicated was smarter, that it was better, and that kind of hard work or harder was better. And what I've really just seen over time, and what the immediate feedback, the lesson I've gotten from that, and this is something I support clients with so much, and I have just seen to be true in my own business and in my friends' businesses who are having incredible results and really sustaining those results and doing so in a way that feels good, is success is, I think I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think sometimes when we say, like, it gets to be easy, I think that is actually a bit of a mindfuck, because I think, especially if I look at that first year in business, and most people's first year in business, it's the whole analogy that it takes the most fuel to have a rocket ship, go to the atmosphere, and then it can coast on a lot less fuel. I think, quite honestly, that, until you're kind of having, the word I can't say, but results on repeat in your business, whether it's a year or 5 years, I mean, that first initial stage, I think it is challenging. And I think we don't have to use the word hard, we can use the word challenging if that feels better. But I think it's really unfair to say that it's just like super easy. However, I do think what creates results and what creates success is very simple. Strategy is simple. Mindset is actually simple when we take a look at what's going on. We just want to overcomplicate things. And when we can learn how to get clear on our goals and our strategy, get out of our own way, show up for them consistently, and take action. Like, it's actually, like, if you look at most businesses, it is relatively simple. And I think that can then feel very easeful on the other side. Like, my business feels pretty easeful now, but it didn't necessarily feel easy all the time. There were challenges to get to that point. But what shifted and really helped that to be true, and I hope this is all making sense, is really starting to see that do simple better. And the way I take that in is, what are the basics that work for you? And this is where that mastery mindset, I think, comes so in handy, and that deliberate practice comes so in handy. What are the basics that work for you, and how can you do those simple things better? Because the difference between, I was gonna say Beyonce and another singer, right? Like, if you actually look at what she's doing, two people could sing on stage, two people could dance on stage. She just does simple better. She just does the basics fucking better than pretty much anyone we know. The same in business. If I look at, once I picked and sticked, once I started working what works, once I got clear on my sales process and rinsed and repeated it, so we'll kind of use some of the tests I had before that, not in this story and equation, but once I started doing that, if you look at what I was doing, let's say in year two to now, pretty much doing the same thing. I share this all the time. We added a new podcast on last year. We add a few, okay, Instagram, we have reels now. Like, there's a few couple things we add in, but generally, like, big picture, my like overall strategy, we might have different ways we execute on it, but overall my strategy is pretty consistent. But because I have a mastery mindset, because we have deliberate practice, I'm doing simple better. I am just getting better at the basics. And that, like, if we look at like the truth behind a 40K cash months, that's the truth is do simple better, get better at the basics, and stop looking for hard and complicated. And I know, I think the reason I'm like almost harping on this a little bit is I know that doesn't sound sexy. And I know because all of our brains so badly want the thing that feels hard, it feels like weirdly good when something's hard. I mean, come on. I know there's a little part of me that's like the subconscious part of me that's like, it is just so awesome when something's hard, because you just like feel like you really did something. You can like pat yourself on the back, and if you're like, well, that was really simple, and I've just been doing the same simple, boring thing for the last 5 years, like, we can't like go and get that secondary gain and payoff from someone for like how hard we struggled and worked. Anyway, I digress. I'm like on a tangent here, but I know that hearing something like this, which is why I saved it to the second to last, is it's both like the truth and the thing that I like want to scream from the rooftops. And I also realize it's one of the least sexy and exciting things. And so like badly do our brains want, like, but Kim, give me the hard, complicated, crazy secret thing you hide behind closed doors that has helped you scale your business. But like the annoying truth, but also maybe hopefully the like not annoying truth and like best truth is it really is do simple better, learn the basics better, rinse and repeat them, and do so through that lens we talked about at the beginning of the live stream, the mastery mindset with the deliberate practice, right? It's do simple better, not just do simple. It's that full sentence, do simple better, master the basics, and be the person who can do the basics better than anyone else, and not in a competitive standpoint, but like maybe better than you did yesterday. Because while I'm still doing the same strategy that I was 5 years ago, I'll tell you, I'm far better at it today, right? I mean, even my coaching, I think I was a great coach 6 years ago. I think I was a great coach 4 years ago, even last year. But I know I just finished working with a friend of mine who I know from we did like a different agreement than I usually have because she's a dear friend of mine. And she worked with me at the beginning of my business, and then I don't know, maybe a year ago, and we just finished, and she reflected to me, it was really sweet, but she's like, I thought you were amazing and epic at what you did. She's like, I didn't think you could get any better, but she's like, holy shit, you got even better at what you do. And I'm reflecting that here, not to pat myself on the back, but it's literally what we're talking about. It's the mastery mindset. I'm doing the same thing. I'm coaching in the same way. I'm just applying mastery mindset and deliberate practice and keeping things really simple. I keep doing one-on-one coaching. I haven't changed my business model. It allows me to do simple better. It allows me to deepen my mastery. It allows me to be a better coach than I was a year ago, because I'm not just showing up mindlessly. I'm showing up with that lens of mastery and deliberate practice to do simple better. So I want to highlight that here because I think this, again, I think it's part strategy, part mindset. I think the mistake, again, is thinking that things have to be complicated, or complicated is better, or hard is better, or that the basics aren't good enough. And what I really want to invite you to play with is, how can you build your business on the basics, full stop? Not how can you build your business on the basics and then go complicate things as soon as you have the success you want. Like, the best businesses out there that are sustainable and successful, most of them are super, like, they keep things super simple. The businesses that have challenges are the ones that scale too quickly and that make things too complicated. Has anyone watched a whole bunch of documentary or TV series on like WeWork right now? There's what's the one on the I cannot think of the name, Theranos, the medical one. That's a whole integrity problem. But they're great examples of startups that they scale too quickly. They complicated stuff really quickly. And so like, I, in New York City, know quite a lot of people in the startup world, and the startups that succeed keep things simple. The startups that have a lot of challenges, they often scale too quickly and they overcomplicate stuff way too fast. So not that you can't add things, absolutely, like work one thing, you can add another thing on, but I would really invite you to see how can you really play with embracing the basics. We did another live stream, I think, where I was talking about how to embrace boring, but to embrace those basics and do simple better, as opposed to looking for the complicated way, the hard way. I've heard, I'm trying to remember her name, because I always want to give credit where credit is due. I cannot think of who, her name is Jen. Oh, it'll come to me. But she, I've heard her talk about how essentially in business, she says something like, don't buy a Ferrari in terms of like a system or a process or strategy when like a Cavalier will get you there, or like another car like that, like a Jetta will get you there, no problem. And that's kind of the analogy I want you to play with here in terms of the mistake. And this is something I did as well, but what I find us so wanting to do and think is, if I can get that Ferrari in terms of the strategy I'm doing, or in terms of the offer I have that's like super fancy and super souped up and like super complicated, I make the crazy sales page. I cannot tell you how much time I spent like trying to make complicated funnels, and now that's not what we use at all, and that's not what books me clients. But we get the Ferrari version, right? When we realize that's just a lot of extra machine, unless you're getting onto a racetrack. I come from a race car family. My dad was a race car coach and a race car driver. Let me tell you, unless you're gonna take that car into the track, like don't drive a Ferrari in the streets of New York City. You're just going to waste the engine. You're not gonna get use of that car. Drive a car that's just gonna get you around. And if a car that's gonna get you around will do, use that in your business, metaphorically speaking. So that is the mistake and the solution. And I just want to invite you to see, is there an opportunity for you to simplify? Is there an opportunity for you to embrace the Cavalier or the Jetta version of the strategy? Something some of my clients and I play with is playing kind of like with placeholder strategy, or placeholder, like we do this with like copy on sales pages or first versions of courses and programs, but it's kind of that same idea of saying like things don't have to be overcomplicated. They don't have to be overly perfect. They don't have to be overly hard. As Brooke Castillo would say, B+ will make you millions, A- will keep you broke. It's kind of that whole mentality, do simple better. Notice where this might be either tripping you up or really serving you, and see what takeaway you have here and what action you can put into place. Just seeing if I have other notes here. The other piece I had here, just as an example, but I just remember that first year in business, just kind of to give a little more context on how this can show up. I noticed I consumed, I think it was Amy Porterfield's podcast, who's great, by the way, but she would share a lot of complicated things that made sense for her business, which is also more complicated than my business anyway. And processes or systems. And I remember thinking, like, then going to implement them. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here. I was trying to drive a Ferrari when I basically didn't even know how to drive stick shift, but I also, like, really a Cavalier or Jetta would have done. And what was happening, because I wasn't focused on doing simple better, and because I thought there was something more complicated out there that was better, I was also listening to advice from that wasn't really meant for me. And I think that's just something to be really mindful of in our space. There's so much free content out there. I mean, look, I'm giving you free content, right? And I think so much of it is great and really valuable. And like, you can Google pretty much freaking anything you want at this point. However, just because we can find the information, we have to understand what information makes sense for us to apply and how to apply it to our businesses. Again, this is where I think having one-on-one support is just really invaluable, and why I'm personally a fan of that, because a lot of the things Amy Porterfield talks about, brilliant, like she's excellent. She has created epic success. She's great, but it didn't make sense for me. It didn't make sense for my business, especially at that stage. I was trying to drive a Ferrari when I didn't even have a driver's license. I was trying to apply strategies that not only were overcomplicated and really had me waste a lot of time and distracted me from what actually generated results in my business, but it also was just far more complicated, and they were things that my business just didn't even need. They were things someone else's business might need if they had a membership program or if they sold courses all the time. But that literally wasn't what I was doing. And that even went with, even the way I was setting up strategy, things just got super overcomplicated instead of just looking at what's the simplest way I can do this? How can I do simple better? Okay, I am hitting you over the head with this. I think you get this, but that one felt really important. Okay, so the last mistake feedback lesson here, which we've talked about in a different way, but this is its own lesson here, and I'm thinking about how I want to best explain this, but I was solving the wrong problem with the things I invested in. So this is again kind of twofold. So we were talking about earlier with one of the mistakes about being really clear on the right problem to solve in your business, and shout out to my coach Lacey Sykes, because that is, I don't know if it's her concept or not, but this is something I've heard from her over and over again. And I feel like I've gotten so great at solving the right problem in business for myself and with clients because I've worked with her for 4.5 years, and I just heard that like that is her refrain in my mind. So give credit where credit is due. My first year in business though, I don't think I was clear on the right problem to solve. And this was the mistake I was making. I was investing in things that didn't solve the right problem in my business. So I was investing in my business. I understood the concept that to make money in business, you need to invest in things. You need to invest in your growth. Like you need to be able to invest to, like, businesses take money to grow. I don't prove me wrong. I would love for you to. I know very few businesses, if any businesses, I don't know any businesses that don't invest to like generate results. However, it's not simply invest money like it's an ATM into your business and then it spits back out money. It's get clear on what you need to invest in to grow your business and then make an investment to solve the correct problem. What's going to solve the right problem that helps you generate more revenue in your business. So hopefully that part makes sense there. The other thing I was doing, this is so transparent. This is all the transparency for y'all today, but we're just going to keep it real and normalized. The other thing I was doing, and this is, I noticed this really quickly in my first year in business, but this was a pattern I had identified when I was acting, is I was also making really safe investments. And I wasn't allowing myself to stretch and make the really investments that solve the right problem in my business, but that also were a little stretchier, that allowed me to have a better chance at getting big results. And this is both an investment mistake, but also a mistake mindset thing going on, which I'm going to break down for you. But let me explain what I mean here. And I will explain this through my acting lens. When I acted, one of the things you need are headshots, which are, we use these in business, right? There's a photo of you, you need a variation of them. That's how you get auditions. And I remember I always invested in my acting business, and I always invested in headshots. So I was doing the right things, right? I understood the concept. You need to invest in your acting. I invested in acting classes. I invested in all the things that I knew you were supposed to. I knew that's what you need to do to be able to have success. And I had some success acting. I definitely worked. However, I think I limited my capacity for success. And I think I slowed down my ability to grow acting because while I invested in the things that solved the right problem, so to say, I invested in the things that were safe. I got the photographer who was super affordable. I got the photographer who was good. I took the acting class that was great, but then I got comfortable there and I didn't invest in private acting coach classes. I kind of did the safe investments, and so I kind of got the safe return. And this is not to create a story that like now everyone needs to go stress out their nervous system and go get into a bunch of debt. For some people that is right, for some people that is not right. That's not what I'm saying here at all. But I can very much see now, looking back, how that held me back when I was acting, and how the reason I was doing that is because I didn't honestly trust myself to invest and get result. I trusted myself to invest, to show up for my investment, right? I'm an action taker. I show up. Like I trusted that, but I didn't trust if I got better headshots from a better photographer that was going to get me auditions I would book. I was a little scared there. Like I was, and I also think I was a little scared of success. I definitely think that was going on there too. I noticed this my first year in business. That's the reason I'm sharing that, is I think it's sometimes easier to see it outside of our business. What I saw my first year in business is that same pattern starting to play out. I was first not always identifying the right problem to solve, and I was investing in things that were great, but they weren't the problem I needed to solve in my business. For example, I invested in an Instagram course my first year in business. It was a great course. I learned a lot about Instagram, like really, I think it was Hillary Rushford's course. Great program. Like kudos to her. She did a great job. I thought it was really great. I learned some stuff about Instagram. It definitely helped me grow Instagram. However, that was not the problem I needed to solve in my business. Kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, like what I really needed to get clear on are what are those simple basics, right? What is my sales process? What is the strategy I'm going to pick and stick with? What are the offers I'm going to pick and stick with? What's the thing that works for me? Not how do I, like, that could have been like a supplementary thing, I guess, if I really needed, but it wasn't the thing I really needed to spend money on. So I wasn't solving the right problem with that investment. Other thing I would do is I was in a group coaching program for a little while. I've always invested in coaching in some way. And I worked with a coach and I was in a group coaching program. They were excellent. However, I was really picking kind of the safe bet coaches, and coaches who were excellent at what they did, but they were pretty much at the same place as me in business. They were really great at the mindset piece, like like all the respect for them. However, what I really needed, the right problem to solve, what I really needed to do was stretch and invest in high-level support and invest in support from someone who was further down the road from me and who could call me on my bullshit. And I now work with someone like that, and I invest quite a bit. I pay her revenue share as well, and worked with her for a really long time. So I clearly moved past that mistake and hurdle, but that was a big gap. And I really limited my growth for a long time because I wasn't solving the right problems with my investment. I remember I was in a group program that was great, but we were learning things that like really weren't even relevant to my business at all. Such a great coach, such a great program that I was in. It wasn't like bad. It just literally some of the things we were learning made like literally had nothing to do with what I wasn't solving the right problem with that investment. And I saw such a big shift when I started to get clear on what are the problems I need to solve in my business. Mine was really mindset. Like that was, I'm pretty great at strategy. I have a strategic brain. I'm great at showing up. Mine was mostly mindset. So then I got clear on like, that's the thing I need to solve. That's the support I need to get. And the edge I needed to work, the like mistake that I needed to really learn from was, let's not do this how we did this in acting. Let's really bet on ourselves, trust ourselves, really trust that this is going, like it is safe to invest at a high level, to not like spend crazily and just like spend money to spend money. And like, if I spend a lot of money, I'll make money, but to invest in the support. And usually, sometimes really great support costs a little bit more, to invest in the support that is really going to help me solve this problem, not put a Band-Aid on it. So I bring that here because I think that is just something at every stage in business. This is something I have to relearn with team. Like I think, even if you're at a place now, this is something I coach clients with quite a bit when we're looking at where they're allocating team hours even. So not just the investing in a team member and that mindset there, but really getting clear on solving the right, like, are we investing team hours in solving the right problem in your business? Because I think what's really fascinating, I think this seems like a challenge that only happens at the start of business, or only happens if you're feeling like limited with resources, which for many people that start a business you are. But as you make more money in business, as you have more resources, I think this can be an equally interesting challenge that pops up, because it starts to feel like you can just start throwing money at team and hours at things. And it's sort of like almost, I think the mindset, like the pendulum can swing where there isn't so much a concern about spend, but then the same challenge can come up where you're not necessarily looking at solving the right problem in your business with your investments, right? It's kind of like this part of the same challenge here. And then I think it's really easy to have a lot of team hours go towards something that doesn't generate an ROI in your business, or start to have a profit margin that doesn't make sense, or start to invest in excellent team members, but who aren't really solving problems that need to be solved in your business, and to essentially create a Ferrari when a Cavalier will do. My voice is getting sore. We've been talking for a long time, y'all. So that was, I know this isn't necessarily exactly strategy. I think there's a little bit of mindset component. Well, I think it is strategy because it's getting clear on where to focus in your business. I think there's a lot of a mindset component around this though, because I think identifying and trusting yourself to get clear on the right problem to solve, and then trusting yourself to invest in the right support that's actually going to help you solve that. I think there's a lot of mindset there. And I think that is a growth edge for all of us as entrepreneurs and as CEOs. And it really asks us to step into that CEO mindset when we're thinking about our business through that lens. And it really also asks us to get into that neutral mindset we've been talking so much about, and starting to see your business as just a really neutral entity and getting clear on what does my business need? What problem does my business need solved? What's the right investment that's going to help me solve that problem? And I think that is a mistake I made my first year in business, and proud of myself for investing in the things I did. I learned some cool things, but one of the, as we're talking about mastering mindset and that deliberate practice and really getting clear on that feedback, one of the things I really learned was starting to identify, but what is the actual problem here to solve? What is the actual support investment that's going to help me generate those results that I want? And that's something I want to invite you to look at and to see, is this something where you're like, again, is this something, what's your takeaway from this mistake? Are you nailing this? Do you feel like you've got this on lockdown? Or is there an opportunity, whatever stage you're at in business, whether you're getting started in business and it's like, oh, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to stretch a little bit and invest in that next level of support that's going to help me? Or are you kind of like pendulum swung where you're like, oh, I've just almost gotten like investment happy, where it's just like, let's throw money at things, and maybe we need to actually look at, do we need to pull back a little bit because maybe we're throwing money at things that just don't need to be done in business? That's something it was middle of last year. I revisited quite a bunch of things because I realized we were, not in a bad way, but we just started getting into a groove with certain things on, like with my team, which we just were spending way more, not because my team investment wasn't worth it, but the strategy, the action we were taking, what we were producing really didn't make sense for the business. We weren't really solving the right problem. And so it was really helpful to take this same mistake and lesson and to apply it to that, to really be able to streamline and to refocus and reallocate some of those hours and investment dollars. So I think you can use this mistake and lesson really wherever you're at in business. And I think it's a helpful thing to revisit even as you get further along in business. I would say especially because I think it's such an important lens for us as CEOs. Okay, so those are your 5 mistakes, your 5 lessons. I'm gonna run back through them, and then I will close out with a couple closing thoughts. And I apologize, I have a lot of text messages popping up on my phone with everything going on. Here in the US, all of my girlfriends there's a big text chain going on. So we're gonna wrap this up here first. So kind of recap. The reminder here, I want to invite you again, closing out, is to really look through the lens of mastery mindset and that deliberate practice, particularly the immediate feedback portion of deliberate practice, and really starting to see these mistakes as feedback. There's no such thing as a mistake or failure unless we don't learn from it, unless we don't look from it, unless we don't refine what we're doing. They're just learning opportunities otherwise. And those 5 mistakes: 1, are you making it hard for people to hire you, to pay you, to see you, to understand what you do? That was definitely one I did. 2, are you caring too much about what other people think, about being nice, about caretaking, about ruffling feathers? 3, are you jumping around from strategy to strategy, from offer to offer, from price point to price point? Are you doing all the things? Are you kind of stopping and starting, doing a little bit here, doing a little bit there? And 3.5, because we had a 3.5, and with that, are you unclear on your sales process? Number 4, are you really trying to chase the Ferrari in your business? Are you trying to chase hard, complicated? Is there an opportunity to do simple better? would invite you to really embrace that. And then 5, are you really clear on what the problems are to solve in your business and what investment is going to help you solve that? And are you really embracing stretching into making those investments in business that maybe are a little stretchier, but that help you to solve those problems? Because that is what is going to help you really get a bigger ROI and shrink your timeline down. So those are the 5 mistakes, as well as a whole lot of truth that goes behind a 40K cash month. Thank you for being here. I hope this was super helpful. Again, if you're watching on the replay, if you left a comment, you will be entered to win a free one-on-one mindset and strategy session. We will pick winners we'll just make it Thursday, because I know there are going to be quite a few of you watching on the replay. So just leave a comment, leave an emoji. You will be entered for that, and we will DM you if you won. And then if you are watching this and this was valuable to you and you're like, you know what, I'm great at what I do. I know I am ready to build and grow and scale my business and to make more money on my terms. Like, I know it is my time, whatever stage you're at a business, whether that is like, I am ready to get fully booked for the first time, or I am fully booked, I am ready to take my business to the next level, whether that's figuring out a way to scale this or to rinse and repeat this and stay out of my own way, or to bring on a new offer. And I'm listening to this, and these are the things I could really use some support with, because I could use some support solving the right problem in my business. I could use some support with the clarity mindset, the strategy and action that goes into making more money on my own terms. I could also could use some support staying out of my own way and getting clear on some of this mastery mindset and the deliberate practice and getting that feedback from an outside set of eyes, because I know I cannot see the spinach in my own teeth, and I notice having someone else's support who's been there before be really, really valuable to me. If that is you, that is what I do. I would love to connect with you. I am generally fully booked, so we only have a handful of spots that open up at a time. So if you are interested in learning more about how I can support you, please, I'll drop a link for a discovery call. Please join me for a free call. They are very low pressure. Fit is, I always say, it's so incredibly important to me. Most of my clients renew and work with me long-term. So I really want to make sure we're a fit to work together. And if we're not, I will lovingly refer you to someone I know who is excellent at what they do and who might be a good fit for you. So I will drop a link to that. I would love to connect with you, and if we are a fit, get you booked into one of my upcoming spots, and if not, point you in the right direction. And then to everyone else, thank you for being here. I hope this was super valuable for you. I hope you take this, you can implement this, take action on this, and use this to get out of your own way, to solve the right problem, and to make your own 10K months or 20K months or 100K months, whatever that goal is for you. I love you all so much. I will be back next week with a regular live stream at our new time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be more daylight out, so it'll be very fun to see how that works. Thank you again. I love you all. Bye.